The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Good night and welcome to The Doctor is In with me, Dr. Denothra Archer Cartwright. Thank you for joining me tonight on Guardian Radio 96.9 for all things health, wellness, and things that pertain to the Bahamian society. I'm glad that you're here with us this evening. And I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. 2023, here we are. After an incredible it's kind of wild last few years. We just have to praise God for all of those of us who have made it into this new year. And I pray that for you and your family and for everyone listening, that this year is a blessing for you. And if you had some things going on in 2022 that you didn't like, let's leave that all in 2022 and look at 2023 as a blessed new start for everybody, a new start for a health journey, a new start for your financial journey, whatever it is that's going on with you. There's a comment online already. Real People Darren, I'm watching and waiting for you to do a show on CKD. Wow, we did a show actually about CKD last year when it was a chronic Kidney Disease Awareness Month with Dr. Grant Taylor. She actually joined in on that particular show. So we had quite an interesting show there, but I'm sure that we'll come back and do that topic again at sometimes because CKD is something that touches the lives of a lot of Bahamians. And so I keep that in mind and maybe pull that closer up in the roster, but we did do a show on that. If you really want to see that, you can go onto the Facebook page, The Doctor is In with me, Dr. D. Archer, and you can scroll down and you probably will find that during CKD Awareness Month. So if you really want to watch that one. Tonight's topic, we're talking about some unintentional weight loss, and we're all coming off of the holidays and all this food and all this stuff. We've enjoyed it. We had a good time. We drank and we were merry. And so we're talking about unintentional weight gain, actually. What is it? And then we're going to compare that for women and men, because sometimes there's different reasons why women gain weight versus why men gain weight. So we're going to look at some of those things as well. But yes, all of our shows are recorded on the Facebook page, The Doctor is In. So like to scroll down and you can see a lot of those topics will be there. I do think that Guardian Radio also puts them on Spotify, so you want to check out Spotify if you have that. But there's a variety of different ways that you can catch the shows. And so if you want to backtrack and take a look at those until we come back to those again, which I'm sure CKD is going to be something that we're going to talk about. But Dr. Grant Taylor, who's one of our lead renal physicians, she was on that show, and we talked quite a bit about chronic kidney disease. And so, like I mentioned, the topic tonight is going to be kind of reasons why you gain weight, even when you don't want to, even when you're trying to lose weight. Sometimes we find that we actually do end up gaining weight when we're trying to lose it. So we're going to look at those things and what are the causes for that for both men and women, because there are some differences in there. And how do we deal with that? So this is a new year and we all want the best for our health. And so Great Weight is looking at first the reasons of why you may be gaining weight, and then from there you can start to develop a healthcare plan for yourself for the new year. And so, of course, we're brought to you tonight by Medical Concierge Services, all your medical health needs. We've had a rush of people kind of joining in to join NHI, and of course, we have Dr. Cooper Tressum, who's also a part of our team. So if you want to get on board, you can give us a call, 326-1521, or our WhatsApp, 432-4010, and you can sign up with us for NHI, and we can take care of any of your clinical needs that you may have. So we're going to talk first 9 reasons why you may be gaining weight unintentionally, because this can be a very, very frustrating topic, and you may not know why. You might be trying different things, but it's not working. Typically, people first jump to diet, but there are a lot of different factors that are involved when you're trying to lose weight or why you may be gaining weight. And sometimes it even has to do with where you are in your life and what's going on in your environment. So we're going to talk about one of the most common things, of course, which would just be eating too much processed food. And we talk about that often, about processed food and how processed food is not good for you. But many healthy foods are going to be the ones that are minimally processed. That'll be your oats, your fruits, your vegetables, yogurts, and things like that. However, highly processed foods, including cereals, fast food, microwavable foods, they have ingredients in them that are just not going to be good for you. And they have a lot of preservatives, and they have a lot of sugar, and they have a lot of added things, and they go through different processes that are just unhealthy and add additional fats. And this is where we get a lot of our hidden fats from processed foods, because you look at a package of something and you say this thing may not have fat or salt in it, but usually these things have a lot of hidden ingredients that if you don't take your time and really go through it, you wouldn't realize sometimes the content of fat, especially bad fats like our saturated fats, that might be hidden in some of these processed or what I call packaged foods. So a good indication is when you're going through the grocery store, if you have more things in packages than you do probably fresh foods that are unprocessed, you might want to refigure how you're doing your shopping. And so I always like to start in the aisle with all the fruits and vegetables, kind of stock up there, and then try to make those other things as minimal as possible. Studies have found that highly linked processed foods definitely lead to weight gain and lead to obesity. And that's really one of the number one causes in places in the United States, which we tend to follow a similar trend. So taking a good look at what processed foods that you might be eating and taking in, or even buying unconsciously, is a great way to kind of filter out some of the unnecessary things. And so a study in Canada looking at almost 20,000 people, what they found was people who use a lot of ultra-processed foods, there was a 32% more chance that they would be obese. And so that was a great cause of it all. We talk about the foods that go into your body, but that hidden processed food is really one of your biggest problems. So these foods tend to be packed with a lot of calories. They don't have the nutrients that you need, such as protein and fiber, and the things that make you feel full. And so you'll tend to find that with that packaged food, you're constantly hungry, you're constantly eating noodles. Because I see a lot of people like noodles, but noodles don't tend to be filling, and then you seem to be eating more and more and more. And so a 2-week study looked at 20 participants, and they found that if you had a lot of processed food and you're just, not having those foods, you actually ate 500 more calories than you would if you were not eating that packaged food. So you want to consider out cutting out those processed meals and snacks, and instead looking at more whole foods in your diet. Eating too much sugar, we all know sugar is not great for us, but if you drown everything in sugar, beverages, candies, cakes, sodas, and it's been Christmas time, you probably got more of that sugar into your body than you needed. And so you may have said, well, I didn't eat a really big plate of food, but I did pick with the sweets. That can be a source of your weight gain. And so sugar intake not only is linked to weight gain, but also increase of chronic health diseases, including diabetes and heart disease, and particularly sugary beverages, which tends to be the sugar of choice. The largest source of added sugar in the United States was strongly associated with weight gain. And so if you're watching Junkanoo, you'll see the group that won, I think, is One Family. Congratulations to you guys. One of their most beautiful costumes was one of the lady in the Coke can. So I love the costume, but I was like, wow, that's a lot of Coke going on in there. So Coke, sodas, those types of things, that's going to be where a lot of people gain their calories, a lot of people gain their sugar. And it's hard to gauge because you're drinking. It doesn't really seem like you'll be putting down a lot of things, but that's where a lot of our sugar and our processed sugar is going to be. And so a comment online, Julian Lauren Johnson, I'm guilty of that during the holidays. Yes, the Coke lady for the win. Yes, I thought the costume was really beautiful, but I also thought about all the sugar content. All right, so they did a study. They looked at over 11,000 women, and they believed that one sugary soda per day led to 2.2 pounds of weight gain over 2 years. So meaning that it's a little bit. So if you're drinking at least one soda a day, you're looking at adding to at least 2 pounds to your body weight every single year or two. So that can be considerable, especially for people who are drinking more than that. That can really add up if you're eating other things and have other things in your diet that could be contributing. And that's how you can go a year or two and then realize, hey, how did I get to this weight? So it kind of creeps up on you. So you have to take care of those things early. Comment online, Citizens for a Better Commonwealth of Bahamas. Good night, Dr. D. On 60 Minutes of Dark, doctor said that the main reason for obesity was genetics. We definitely don't agree with that, doctor. Well, genetics can play a bit of a role in weight gain, but what we find is for most chronic diseases and problems, genetics usually weighs in sometimes at about a third or less. A lot of the stuff is really kind of environmental, and what I find is people, right, genetics is just one factor, right? So your genetics may make you more prone to gaining weight, but I found that a lot of people that blame or look at genetics, it really has sometimes very little to do with genetics. It usually has a lot to do with the type of culture that's gained through the family. So what you'll find is that a family will eat a certain way, and they will teach their children to eat a certain way. They'll teach your children certain habits. So if you go home and you eat and you just watch TV, your kids are going to learn those behaviors. So sometimes the things that we interpret as genetics, because I know a lot of Bahamians aren't really doing genetic studies for those particular things. What they're saying is my father was a big man, my mother was a big woman. Those types of things are like that. Like my husband is a big guy. He's a big framed guy. He's always been a big framed guy, but my kids are pretty thin. And so, you can look and say, well, they should all be a certain way. But, especially with my first daughter, I would say that I took it upon myself because a lot of what affects a child's development happens in the first couple of years of life. And so it's really important to go as clean as you can in that child's diet. So, just like a first mother, I was very keen. Everything had to be like organic and fresh and blah, 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 blah. So I think that really helps quite a bit if you early on teach them certain lifestyles, number one. And number two, you don't start them on the processed food very early. Children develop all their fat cells within the first 6 months to 2 years of their life. So you're predetermining a lot of things for your kids, and it may not be genetics just by the things that you're doing in the household within the first years of life. So that's something that we don't really think about all the time or consider, but these are the things that have a lot to do with a child's later development, what happens in the first 2-3 years. And so we factor that in. We would take a different approach because what happens is the kids are coming into our lifestyle and they're picking up our habits. They're eating the foods that we're purchasing and buying. So we're eating a lot of fast food or processed food. Then you have a kid whose early development will be those things. His body will adapt to that form of eating. And it's going to be very difficult for him or her later in life. So, that's one of the things that we can kind of do for our kids, just to kind of change these generational trends. And that whole idea that our entire family is, structured with big people. Because if we look at our skeletons, unless you're a really big, tall person, there's not a lot of difference with to say that person is so much bigger than the other. Usually what makes us big is the amount of fat that we grow over time. So that I hope that kind of explains some of that. So genetics does play a little part, but I think it's less than we think it is. And a lot of the things that we put on genetics has to do with what we're training our kids to do, the lifestyle that our family lives. And if you tend to get away from that, you will be able to see a change. The other question was, Dr. D, it's Genetics, why don't people in poor countries have obesity problems? We agree with you. It's our diet, and then we must be disciplined. Yes, definitely for true. So yes, there can be some genetic components, maybe that would predispose you to certain things, but usually a lot of it has to do with environmental factors, how we eat, how we grow up, and those types of things. Our sedentary lifestyle, that's kind of number 3. So we can kind of be eating okay, but if we don't combine that with being very active, because it's like inputs and outputs, then we can also get weight gain just kind of slowly pile up on us. And so inactivity is a common contributor to weight gain and chronic disease. And just working a desk job can be that, because I even saw the difference in my metabolism between when I was, a young doctor running around in the hospital compared to being a family physician where I sit quite often behind a table. Even your metabolism, I guess, changes a bit. And so you're sitting more often and you're not burning the type of calories that would keep your weight down. And so you just kind of gain weight. So if you are watching TV a lot, if you drive for a living, if you use a computer or you're on the phone, any type of sedentary lifestyle in which you're not actively moving throughout the day, that's going to be problematic. So a study with 464 people with obesity and excess weight found that their average daily sitting time was 6.2 hours. And what they found that even when they were not working, they still were kind of sitting down for about 6 hours. So you can see that our daily habits, even though that could be from work, where we were sitting for so long, we carry that over into the rest of our week and even into our weekends. And so work-related tasks were the largest contributors, followed by watching television. So those people who watch a lot of television, you might want to use that time to maybe walk around, pull out your bike, or, put more standing into your life. So making a few simple changes, such as exercising, sitting less, can make a huge difference. That might be the one thing that can change around the way that you are gaining weight. And so a 3-month study of about 317 workers found that by replacing 1 hour of sitting with 1 hour of standing per day in the workday, reduced the total fat mass and weight circumference whilst increasing lean mass. So get up at work, get up at your desk, walk over to a coworker, walk to the copier, spend an hour out of that day actually up off of your feet, and you will just alone have a little difference right there. And research has shown that engaging in excessive screen time contributes significantly to unintentional weight gain. I tend to be on the screen quite a bit, so I'm kind of guilty of that one. And so one of my resolutions for the year is to be a little more downtime away from the screen, because that can be addictive sometimes. And I do a lot of work on the computer or on my phone. So even such as taking a walk after dinner instead of watching TV, or walking during your lunch break, investing in a standing treadmill, or riding your bike to work can help with that. And so what I've been doing too, I walk up the hill sometimes. Sometimes if I need to go for lunch, I'll actually walk to one of the really close lunch places to help me kind of get that going, because I do a lot of sitting sometimes. Engaging in yo-yo dieting. And this is one that people may not realize, because they're dieting thinking, hey, I want to lose weight. But if you're going through cycles of dieting and stopping, this can actually contribute to intentional weight gain, because you'll go through cycles of kind of losing weight and gaining weight. And this pattern increases the risk of weight gain over time. So if you're constantly going through cycles of diet, that's why we push for lifestyle changes rather than dieting. You can find that over time, you actually do gain weight because of this cycle. They looked at over 2,785 people, and what they found is that those who had dieted within the previous year actually had a greater body weight and weight circumference than those non-dieters. So having a stable, diet, a stable diet, balanced diet is probably going to be better than doing extreme diets, stopping and starting that. And other studies showed that if you had a very restrictive diet, it leads to a lot of future weight gain as well. So you don't want to go to any extreme because the body responds in a physiological manner, and that changes and it causes hunger and changes the way that the hormones in your body works. So going on a really restrictive diet, there can be it's out there. Actually, over time, people tend to gain weight, and they're wondering why, because they're going through these cycles of diet, but it's leading them to weight gain. So, and they tend to gain all the weight back plus more within 5 years. Comments from online, it says, I work night duty as a nurse and I'm very active. However, my sleep and eating patterns are disrupted and I'm gaining weight. That's a good point. And that's going to be one of my points. And so I'll skip over the next one, which is, we'll do this one quickly and then we're going to get to sleeping and how that affects your weight gain. So undiagnosed medical issues. So if you think there's no reason for you to be gaining weight, you should get your health physicals done to make sure it's not thyroid disease or depression, or for some women, and especially for women, PCOS, which is polycystic. And that's when you have changes in your hormones of women in their reproductive age, and that can cause a lot of weight gain. And it's really, really hard to lose if you don't know what the diagnosis is. Also, if you have any kind of eating disorder, so if you're binging and purging or doing different things, that can also affect you gaining weight. And so number 6, as the person commented about sleep. So they're very active. She doesn't realize why she would be gaining weight, but she is, and she recognizes that she has issues with her sleep pattern. So sleep is really essential for your overall health. And we've talked about sleep and how it helps in various different things. So insufficient sleep actually triggers weight gain, among other negative effects. And when they looked at none that demonstrated that sleep fewer than 6 hours daily, they had the highest body mass index and the highest levels of this fatin, a protein secreted by fat cells. And so compared to women who slept 6 hours or more per day. So if you're getting less than 6 hours of sleep, especially for women, this can trigger you to actually gain weight. So a 2-week study of 10 adults with excess fat following a low-calorie diet, those who slept for 5.5 hours per night lost 55% less body fat and 60% more muscle than those who slept for 8.5 hours. So women, you need to sleep 8-9 hours of sleep every night. And so I know when you're nursing and you're doing shifts, it's really, really hard because you have different schedules and all of that kind of stuff. So you're going to have to train yourself to be able to sleep. Like me, I can sleep anytime. To kind of train yourself to be able to sleep whenever you need sleep. And so you need to get that 8 to 9 hours. It's really, really important for your body to rest. It's really important for your metabolism. And that might be the thing that's destabilizing your hormones and your weight. And so you want to get your sleep. All right. So sleep can aid in weight loss. So that's the only thing that you can think of, and you don't have any chronic illnesses, that might be the key factor to just balancing everything off so that you can get that weight loss going, or even to stop gaining weight. All right. So it's hard. Yes, it's really hard to train yourself to sleep. You may have to force yourself in different capacities. So if you're having to sleep sometimes in the day, making the room extremely dark, getting blinders, getting eye stuff, getting comfortable music or something that you can kind of self that anytime you're in that situation, it's time to sleep. And so you can really do a lot of control stuff on your own, but you'll have to kind of program yourself. And it takes maybe about 6 to 8 weeks to really get that kicking in. And so I would invest in looking at sleep hygiene and sleep cycles and how to train yourself to sleep. And so because you're in a very difficult situation where you actually have to sleep maybe sometimes in the day and sometimes in the night. But getting that really good sleep is going to be super, super important for your overall health. And you'll even realize that it's really protective for not getting chronic disease as well. So working those stressful jobs, that can be a part of what leads you into a really unhealthy lifestyle. Whilst we're trying to help other people, we're actually putting ourselves into really unhealthy lifestyles that most of the population doesn't have to deal with. So shout out to all my healthcare world. It's a hard job. Someone's got to do it. So sleep, that was really, really important. Eating enough whole foods kind of goes into conjunction. So that's number 7. Eating enough whole foods, to kind of balance off the processed food that's out there. And that promotes weight loss and improves many other aspects of your health. And so study of about 609 adults with excess weight into groups that followed either a low-fat diet for 12 months or a low-carb diet. Both were instructed to take in vegetables and restrict their sugar, trans fat, and refined carbs, eat mostly whole, minimal processed, nutrient-dense foods, and prepare meals at home. So preparing meals at home allows you to get the nutrients that you need. And what the study found is that both groups did pretty well. So whether you cut down on the fat or cut down on the carbs, both groups lost about 12 to 13 pounds. And so micronutrients was really an important factor in their weight loss. So once you're getting the proper nutrients into your body and you either cut down the fat content or the carb content, you can get weight loss in all of those ways. So by incorporating whole foods into your diet, you want to start slowly with very nutrient-dense foods such as vegetables, fruits, beans. Eggs are a great source of protein, nuts, seeds into your meals and snacks. So trying to get away from the processed snacks, the things that are going to be a lot better for you. Comment online. Citizens for a Better Commonwealth of Bahamas. At night, if people just train themselves to have tea and bread or water, that will help. After 6 p.m., the body is beginning to process any large amounts of food. Yeah, so if you look at a lot of the things that talk about weight loss and stuff like that, and someone mentioned earlier on intermittent fasting, it's about either bringing the hours into a certain amount, and then a lot of the older diets talk about not eating really late at night because this is when your body is resting and you don't want to be processing or working too hard or whatever like that. So I do believe that if you can cut out eating pretty late, it's probably going to be good, especially if it's going to be just before bed. So you really want to use that energy to kind of recoup through the night and just get a nice restful sleep. Also, I find that certain foods do affect your sleep habits as well as liquids. And so you have a lot of people that complain that they get up a lot at night to use the bathroom, but they're drinking a liter of some type of beverage or water. Some people try to recoup that they didn't drink a lot of liquids during the day just before bedtime, and then that also messes up their sleep cycle. So sometimes you have to kind of weigh and balance what you're doing. Comment says, I only drink tea and eat crackers when I work on night duty. And see, that might be a thing too. So you're doing that constant snacking during night duty. And that may be adding also calories that you wouldn't have had if you were working during the day. So if you think about a lot of these things, you kind of see the things that are triggering your weight gain and placing a factor on what's going on with your health. Here's a big one. I think this is one of my triggers, getting stressed out. So chronic stress is a common problem that can affect your weight. I think too, as women, when we get stressed out, a lot of us either eat more or our metabolism changes a bit. So high levels of stress creates the hormone cortisol, shown to increase hunger and the desire for highly palatable, calorie-dense foods, which can cause weight gain. So just being stressed, and that's why you have a lot of people who are stress eaters, and there is a chemical reason for that. So if you have high levels of stress, we talked again about healthcare workers, high stressors, you're going to be craving some of these things and you're not kind of realizing it. So what's more, studies indicate that people with obesity have higher cortisol levels than those who do not have the condition. Interestingly, stress management may promote weight loss. So if you are working a stressful job or you have a stressful environment, if you focus on some relaxation techniques, some deep breathing techniques, just doing these simple things and recognizing that you do have stress in your life can also kind of tilt the balance towards keeping your weight manageable. So to reduce stress, look at relaxation practices, as we talked about. Some people like meditation or yoga or those types of things, or even exercise. Really, really good to reduce your stress in those ways. And by just reducing your cortisol levels, you can turn the tables on your weight. And then the most basic one at all, the one that most people have a problem with, is just eating too many calories. So just eating too much. Overeating remains one of the most prominent causes of weight gain, taking more calories in than you burn per day. And so I always like to look at calories in and calories out. So when you put food into your body, you add calories. When you exercise or you do activities, you burn them out. So if you're combining that sedentary lifestyle with high caloric diet, you're likely going to gain weight. And mindless eating, frequent snacking, and making calorie-rich, nutrient-poor dietary choices promotes excessive caloric intake. So it can be difficult to determine your calories and your needs. So you can consult a dietitian or sit down with your doctor and have a good idea of what are your caloric needs, because they are a little bit different for women and men. And so a lot of women too will say, me and my husband, we're taking up the same amount of food. That's why the men tend to burn those calories more often. And so women, we need a smaller plate, maybe a little bit less for our size and because of our hormones and everything. So we might have to have a slightly different diet than the men. So the bottom line is there are a lot of factors: weight gain, poor sleep, sedentary activities, eating too much processed foods, sugary foods, and just some of the habits that might increase your weight. So a few simple steps: mindful eating, exercise, focusing on whole foods can help you reach your weight goal and improve your overall health. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to look a little bit at the men and some of the things that may cause a bit more sudden weight gain in our men, because we can't forget our men. You have to remember there's some things, and some of the stuff does cross over to women too, but these are the things that we're seeing that are a little more striking in men. And so we'll be right back, and we're going to touch onto that as well. Going to take a quick break on The Doctor's In with me, Dr. D. Archer. Find a producer. Producer, we're going to take a quick break. I guess we're not taking a quick break. So I guess we're going to go straight into the 9 common causes of sudden weight gain. And this is a little bit more focused on our men, but women too, we're going to touch on to that. Yes, I'm still in line. And sometimes so we look at men and we kind of forget that they do have different kind of changes and stuff. Okay, yes, can't leave the men out. My husband is tuning in as well, for sure. So we talk broadly, and then some of those things hit with the women. But we're also going to tap in a little bit more towards the men. Women, you can still listen in because this is going to be for you too. But sometimes men don't realize there's some things that really kind of trigger them as well. So for when we look at our men, we're looking at sometimes sodium consumption. So it causes the body to retain water. Water has weight volume, and if you eat a lot of salty foods for several days in a row, so this can be for both men and women. But this is also one of the things more so for the men, because they'll have a lot less issues with like hormones in terms of weight gain, and they won't be the ones usually to get PCOS. And so for them, it may just be the salt in their diet. And so for weight gain, too much salt, you absorb more water, and that can cause retention. And so if you have a really high salt diet and you see that your weight is fluctuating, that may be one of the things. And so you can see how stuff like that would lead to things like high blood pressure anyway. And so be concerned about that. And where do you get a lot of that salt from? From the fast foods out there. They're loaded with sodium. And if you recently filled your days with takeout and from restaurants, and you could account for your influx of pounds. So we do find too that it's usually the men who are going out and ordering food or getting food during the day and even bringing the food to their wives. So guys, you have to change some of those habits, may be leading to both weight gain in yourself and even in your wife or your girlfriend or your significant other. All right. So keep in mind that lots of food that you eat are high in sodium, and bread, sandwiches, cold cuts, cured meats, and some of the top sources of sodium in the American diet, and we're very similar. So you may not realize that there's high content in some of the breads that are being used, especially when you're getting foods and fast food breads, because they want everything to taste a certain way. And so, yes, Julian, it is important to eat at home a lot more often. And if you can bake bread, even better, because then you're going to control the salt content. So even on the bread, take a look and compare the breads on your shelf. There is a lot more salt in those. Comment from online. Doctor, how does stress affect the diet for men and women? Well, some people become stress eaters. And as we talked about, cortisol levels as well cause you to actually want to eat certain foods that are really dense in calories, right, to combat the hormonal changes that are going on in your body. And so you'll find that some people are more prone to stress eating, and that could be both women or men. You will tend to find that a lot of women stress eat. Men tend to deal with their stress in various different ways, but stress overall can affect both men and women. All right, so not eating enough potassium. This can be something. Yes, limiting your intake of potassium is important, but it's not the only important nutrient when it comes to water weight. So potassium is like a sodium counterweight, while sodium helps to help maintain the fluid around your cells. Potassium helps your muscles and work to regulate your blood pressure. The two go hand in hand, and if one is out of whack, overall hydration suffers. So while there's no recommended daily amount of potassium intake, experts indicate that 3,400 milligrams of good daily amount is a great target to have. And you can find potassium in things like bananas. So bananas are pretty good fruit. If you're a diabetic, you want to maybe half that, but it's really good to have potassium in your diet. Also, for a lot of people, if you started taking a new medication and then you realize that you have started gaining weight, it's really important to see that up to 15% of obesity can be caused by certain medications. Two common culprits would be depression medication, which are and also your heart disease medications like your beta blockers. So if you're on a new set of medication and you feel like it's affecting your weight, that's a conversation you can have with your doctor. It's going to be something where you look at the risks versus why you're taking the medication, why you're not. And then, of course, if you're taking any type of steroids and testosterone boosting drugs or supplements, they also can affect your hormones. So that's where hormones for men come in. If they're doing any type of testosterone treatments, they can definitely suddenly cause weight gain in a man. And that includes over-the-counter or internet supplements. So be careful with supplementations because a lot of men look for testosterone supplements, or some supplements may contain testosterone. And if that's not prescribed from a doctor in a particular way, you may be actually adding weight to your body. So check those supplements and be sure, because some supplements are not regulated. It doesn't have to come from just a prescription, but also some over-the-counter medication. So if you're concerned, you should also let your doctor know about any making over-the-counter or any supplementation, especially if you're having unusual side effects such as weight gain. And the doctor will kind of look to see, and then also how they may be reacting with medication that you're already on. Also, if you're on any type of diuretics, so if you're on diuretics, for any medical reason, and you stop taking them, you can gain fluid, and that's a good cause of weight gain. So some people aren't taking their medication, and that could be a problem, including also thyroid medication. We mentioned before that there are some medical issues that can cause weight gain and weight loss. And so thyroid issues can be something, or not taking your thyroid medication. Are you eating just more than you realize? A really interesting point that I saw, especially when I had my first child, and it was like, we always joke that women get pregnant, we gain the weight, but somehow the men tend to gain weight with us. And that's true. And that could be a lot of things. That could be stress, going through that. And also, I read an interesting article that men tend to finish off the children's food when they don't eat. And so they actually usually tack on a lot of calories during when we have young children, because, they're eating the excess hot dogs and the food that's left in the plate and a lot of different things, and snacking with the children. And so our men can get into those habits as well. And so we have to be cautious of that. And they have to be aware that, these little things add up. And sometimes they end up gaining more weight than the wife or the mother of the child. So those are little ways that men can kind of put on weight through the years. And, that it's really funny to think because you don't think about men and weight gain and having children. But a lot of men gain weight with their wives. All right. And a lot of interesting things. They're eating the same things as well. Switching to a really high carbohydrate diet. Some people move from a low carb diet. And we talked about going from diet to diet, like a keto, and then they go into things with a lot of starches, and they notice differences in the scale. And that's because carbs stored in the muscles and the liver as glycogen. Each gram of glycogen contains about 3 grams of water, meaning you can store a lot of that in your tissue. So carbs are quite important, but in terms of exercise and general health, you need those resources. So switching those diets, as we talked about, and going to a really high carbohydrate diet. Also, there's a myth of most people that if you just go to a boiled diet, it's a healthy diet. So what I find is there's a lot of people, and especially guys that are saying, I'm eating a boiled diet. I don't know why I'm gaining weight, but they're eating a really high carb diet. So they're eating a lot of potatoes and cassava and things that they think are going to be really healthy for them, but it's really diet. And so if you're not exercising to match that diet, you can also gain quite a bit of weight. Endocrine disorders, also in men, they can have underactive thyroid disease. Men tend to have less checkups, so they can go quite a while gaining weight without really realizing that maybe they have a thyroid disease, and that's where it's really important to have a family history. And if it's not a part of the family history, just to notice certain changes, and if you do see a really big change in your weight, to go and get that checked out. So according to the National Institute of Health, while this condition is more uncommon in women, they say plenty of men experience hypothyroidism, so that can cause sudden and significant weight gain. So with very sudden, you do want to consider more of a medical condition rather than just eating habits. And you also, because it causes a lot of weight gain, and if you have one endocrine disorder, you really should for others as well. So like endocrine, thyroid, diabetes, they all kind of around the same thing. So if you're a man and you're also experiencing fatigue, weakness, headaches, problems thinking, depression or irritability, all these can be signs of hormonal changes right there. Other chronic diseases that you want to be aware of, and these diseases can be the culprit and cause sudden weight gain. And if you notice that you're gaining 1 to 2 pounds every few days, you want to see a doctor right away, because this can be something like fluid due to kidney failure, because you're increasing fluid in the body. All right, comment online. They call it living good when a man and a woman starts gaining weight together, but we call it lack of discipline. Well, there can be a lot of things going on, and then over time, our metabolisms change. And yes, when you get very comfortable in life, sometimes it's easier for the weight to catch back up with you. And so we also always have to take kind of account and kind of reset and kind of look back and say, where are we going with this? And that's going to be a really important factor in deciding if, this is, what's going on. Could it be health problems? Are we just living this, like you said, like the commenter said, Bayman said you're living good if you're both gaining weight together. And so it's actually looked at as a really, really good thing. So we have a few minutes. We're going to go over a few more points. If you want to join in and if you have a comment, why did you gain weight this past year? What caused you to gain weight and what are you going to do about it? 322-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259 to get in with us tonight. And so other medical conditions, of course, that we talked about, kidney disease, a lot of other things that can cause weight gain. And that's it. So we'll take a quick break. I've been trying to take a break. So producer, if you're there with me, can we take a quick break before we come up and wrap up the show? Hey.
Loss of family members is very isolating, and people who have experienced loss appreciate when others have shared their grief. If you can't be there in person, go to the Nassau Guardian's website online at thenassauguardian.com and visit our obituary link. The Nassau Guardian's interactive obituary link allows you to read the funeral announcement, express condolences, or place photos on the online guest book for 1 full year. Losing a loved one is painful, but that pain isn't the worst thing to happen. Friends, loved ones, colleagues, and neighbors who ignore the loss compound the pain. Should the bereaved family wish to place the obituary and photos on our obituary site, just contact the Guardian's funeral industry partners or the Nassau Guardian. Remember, there isn't one magic right thing to say to someone experiencing loss that will make the loss less painful or easier to bear. The Nassau Guardian's obituary link, available online at thenassauguardian.com.
Girl, you see how Cora eye look funny, all black up yesterday?
But she say she bumped into a wall when she's running after the churn them.
You see her arm was all black and blue, right?
So what you saying? You think something wrong between her and Jack?
I ain't sure, but you know Jack is a jealous man. I hear him and Cora last Friday. I hear him say he hear Cora have eyes for Junior.
Now you know that ain't true. Cora is a good woman, does mind her business, take care of them churn, and go to church every Sunday. So what you think we should do?
I think we should report Jack, Cora don't say nothing, but silence hides violence, and we don't want to line up in the cemetery.
Not me. I ain't getting in nobody business. Then Jack come after me and I land up next to Cora.
No, man, we could call a text Crime Stopper. And remember, we can even get some grocery money for our tip.
Remind me again, how does this work?
We can call them in Miami at 328-TIPS or 328-8477. Or when we in the island, call toll free at 300-TIPS or 300-8477. And if you don't have no minutes, use the Crack Crime Bahamas app and we could text them and the messages get on mix up before it leave your phone so nobody can know what you saying.
So what we waiting on then? Let's go earn some grocery money.
Hello and welcome back to The Doctor is In with me, Dr. Denilthor Archer Cartwright. Thank you for listening in here with Guardian Radio 96.9. We're on Guardian Talk Radio as well, the app, and we're on Facebook Live on The Doctor is In with me, Dr. D. Archer. We were talking about unintentional weight loss, just reasons why you lose weight and sometimes sudden weight. We talked a little bit about generally for everybody and then women and men. And so if you have any quick comments for us, we have a few more minutes. 323-623-316, 325-4259. Okay. And just kind of wrapping up with the men. And so men can have some issues with hormonal imbalance as well. They have all the same hormones, just in different levels. So if they have an andropause-related symptom, if they have issues with testosterone or the estrogen levels in their body, they too can gain weight. So weight gain in men has a strong connection to male hormone imbalance symptoms, and relationship between weight gain and andropause is said to have a reversible causes. And so the effect of this relationship can cause male hormone imbalance to be a result of that. And whilst decreasing a man's muscle mass, low testosterone would also cause his body fat to increase. So particularly the belly fat area Men are born with more fat cells naturally occurring around the abdomen than women, and more than a third of men are considered overweight compared to only 26.5% of women. Another 35% of men are clinically obese, and an increase in body fat enhances male hormonal imbalance, leading to his body changing testosterone into estrogen. It's really a vicious cycle. So you can have hormone imbalance that leads to increased fat, and increased fat lends to more hormone imbalance. And that's a vicious cycle where they end up with a lot of estrogen similar to women. And those changes can result in men gaining weight. So many causes of weight gain in men are related to hormonal balance as well in a certain way, slightly different than in women, but they too can have these issues. The main culprit in relationship between testosterone and weight gain in men, once again, is the hormone cortisol that we talked about. And when cortisol levels are boosted as a result of several related symptoms, the metabolic rate can decrease. And this production of fat increases their appetite and is heightened. Weight gain naturally follows. The cycle continues and gets even worse as the additional cortisol levels continue to reduce testosterone production in males and cause an increase in weight gain. We have a caller. Caller, you're on the air. Caller, are you there? Caller, are you there?
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, good night.
Good night. Yeah, I'm calling concerning on what you think underlying border thyroid.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit, and thyroid can be an issue. So what I do for a lot of my new patients, especially if they're struggling with diabetes or weight gain or any other thing, is to do a thyroid function test or a TSH, because this can be a cause. If you have hypothyroidism, whereas you're not producing enough of thyroid hormones, you can actually be gaining weight for that. One of those things that you can treat, and once you get that under control, you can tend to get your weight under control.
Okay.
Any other specific question on that, caller?
No, that's it. That's all I wanted to know, because I missed up on what you're saying.
Yeah, so if you're concerned that it might be a thyroid thing, if you say, I'm doing everything and I just seem to be gaining weight, sit down, have a talk with your doctor, or come on into medical concierge services and schedule an appointment with us or your physician of choice, and really get that screening test done so you can see, because some of these things can be treated if we can figure out what it is.
Okay, then.
Also,
thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. Also, if you have a family history of thyroid disease, it's good to get a screening test done as well. Usually, sometimes you'll find that it may be one of the hereditary components that contribute. And what I've seen is quite a few people realize that one of their parents or a very close relative also has thyroid disease. Sometimes people don't do on their annual physicals, but I find that in Bahamas, there's a lot of missed thyroid disease. And so it can be a very important part of your screening or your initial annual physical with your physician. So yes, it's very important. And that's one of the things as both a man or a woman that can be missed. Also with men, there are other medical conditions such as human growth hormone, and then, of course, thyroid disease, as the caller talked about, that can also contribute to a man having a really slow metabolic rate and desire to perform physical activity. So, for a lot of women, fatigue is caused by being anemic. They have periods, they lose blood. So when you see kind of fatigue in men, you start to think about some other things that could be causing it. And of course, just like we talked about with women, you also have to consider stress and lack of sleep. And just the diet itself. And so nutrition, of course, plays a really, but some of these other things can be factors that can be treatable or can be changed and can really change your life around. So having that, it may be scary to say have those diagnoses, but let's say that's something that we can treat, and within a few months, you can get yourself normalized and get your weight back together. And that's going to be really good for your overall health. So it's really important to take that step to really go and get those things checked out. If you're having problems with your weight, if you have unintentional weight gain, That's one of those things that can be reversed or changed, whether it be lifestyle or by correcting some type of abnormality that's going on in the body. And so it's really and healthy to gain an short amount of time. So if you feel like it's even sudden, it's definitely something that can be worked on. If you realize that you have things that you need to change in your lifestyle and your diet, beginning of the year, great time to start. Make that one of your resolutions or your goals for the year. We talked about goal setting at the end of last year and being very specific in what you want those goals to be. And those are going to be the things that are going to be helpful. So I want to thank everybody who listened in online and on Guardian Radio tonight. We'll be back next week at 6:30 with the doctors in with me, Dr. D. I hope these topics have been helpful and brought to you, of course, by Medical Concierge Services. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram, 326-1521, and our Facebook page, Medical Concierge Services. And we'll see you all next week for another exciting show. Good night.